Not everybody diagnosed with lung cancer is in their 50s, and not everybody diagnosed with lung cancer is a smoker. That's what we're going to learn from our guest on this episode. Dale Steno of Maple Grove, Minnesota, survived lung cancer, and he did so as somebody who didn't fit the profile a lot of people wrongfully associate with the disease. So here's his story. Here he is. And Dale, welcome to the Cancer Interviews podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Dale, we want to start out the way we always do, and that's to learn a little bit more about you. So if you would, tell us a bit about where you're from, what you do for work, and when time allows for fun, what you do for fun.
Very good. So lived in Minnesota for 46 years, even though I like to tell people that I'm an honorary New Jerseyan as well. My folks moved here right when they had me. And 46 years in this icebox. I spent 22 years roughly in the executive recruiting and staffing industry for probably 3 different companies throughout that time. And post-diagnosis, I actually have since bought a kickboxing gym and figured I wanted to fulfill items on my bucket list, and that was one of them. I've got 2 kids and married, and actually my wife works full-time with me at the gym as well.
Now, in terms of your cancer journey, for all of us who are survivors, there was that juncture in which we thought things were normal, and then something something unusual occurred, and then things changed. For you, what was that chain of events?
Yeah. The year 2021, 4th of July weekend, started realizing something was wrong. It was funny because that was when things had kind of opened back up from COVID and the world was kind of starting to feel a little bit normal again. I swore I had a summertime cold. That actually the whole house did. And I didn't get better and everybody else got better. By about August, I wasn't better at all. In fact, I was much, much worse. And at the time I was actually training for a 3-round boxing match. And I was training one particular night. I'll never forget it. I got hit in the stomach, which nobody wants to get hit in the stomach, but this hurt so bad. I literally thought I was having a heart attack and I thought I was going to die. And packed up our gear that night, went home, started realizing something was pretty seriously wrong. 4 days later, urgent care, ER, hospital, the rest is history.
I am guessing that as horrific as all that was, if there was any positive component to this, is that if you were diagnosed with cancer, excuse me, it was detected rather early. Is that fair to say?
Let's put it this way. The state I was in at that point, they said if I had waited 2 more days, I probably would have been able to walk into the hospital. If I'd waited 2 more weeks, they would have been scraping me off the parking lot. That really far along. And basically what had happened was my entire right lung was completely full of fluid, blood, and I don't know, whatever else is in there. And they couldn't even detect my right lung in the x-ray. There was a little tiny bit that would show at the very, very top, but the rest of it looked like there was no lung, to the point that the urgent care doctor he asked me flat out if I had my lung removed. And I said, not that I know of. That'd be news to me. So that's when we realized it was crisis lockdown mode.
And at that point, was it shortly after that you were diagnosed with cancer, or were there other tests, other things that led to the diagnosis?
Yeah, so in urgent care, they basically told me, you're not going anywhere. You're staying here. We're going to wheel you over to the ER, which was in the same building there. And you're property of the hospital for now. And so went to the ER and they started doing a lot of tests. They started draining the fluid out. And if you've never had a thoracentesis is what they call it, where they basically drill in through your back between the ribs and start sucking fluid out, you wouldn't believe how painful this thing is. It took 3 days to drain all the fluid out. So on day 1, the fluid that they got that day, they sent it off for testing. And by about day 3 or 4, they came to my room, and they didn't know what, they didn't know how severe it was. They didn't know anything at that point, but they said, you've absolutely tested positive for cancer. So we need to do more testing. By that point, all the fluid was more or less drained. I could breathe fairly normally again. They said, there's no point of keeping you here any longer. So I was there for 4 days, and they sent me on my way. However, that next 2 weeks was basically nonstop testing, PET scans and CT scans, MRIs, blood work, a whole bunch of stuff. And then, it was pretty quickly determined it was stage 4 lung cancer, non-small cell, non-smoker. And those are a couple weeks I won't forget. And it's very, very intense and very, very frightening.
By the way, we're confident you'll be able to learn some tips and tools to help you through your personal cancer journey. But first, we'd like to invite you to please give us a like, leave a comment or a review below, and share this story with your friends. Kindly click on the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so you'll be notified the next time we release a cancer interview. And if you or a loved one are facing a cancer diagnosis, please click on the link in the description and show notes below to check out our free guide, The Top 10 Things I Wish I Knew When I First Got Cancer. Now, Dale, when you first got cancer, here you were a guy who was healthy enough to engage in kickboxing. Just how stunned were you to learn that you had cancer?
I was so shocked that I was convinced that they had the wrong diagnosis, they had the wrong room, that they had misread something, or maybe my test got mixed up some way. And it turns out they don't make that type of mistake. They might, but they definitely did not. None of it made any sense. I was probably physically, what I felt like, probably in the best shape of my life. I was 43 years old at the time, I believe. And the year before, so that happened in August of 2021. In August of 2020, I was doing an ultra relay marathon, which, if you're familiar with ultra marathons, they're in the couple 100 miles range. It was with a team of people. And I did 31 miles in 24 hours or something like that. It kind of works as a relay. And you can't have lung cancer and have that happen. It just didn't make any sense to me at all. And so I was absolutely convinced that was like, there's no way this is just a mistake. It just, something must have happened. Maybe it was COVID, and it sure wasn't. So shocked, yes. Angry, no. Shocked, denial is almost the way I would put it.
Dale, each type of cancer is a bit different in that it may offer the patient various options in terms of treatment. And with some cancers, there aren't any options. How about in your case, once you learned that you had cancer and it needed to be treated, did you have options? And if so, what were they?
I was pretty lucky early on. My oncologist at the time said that it was more or less like I had won the lung cancer lottery. I was a candidate for not a lottery you want to win, by the way, but still not all bad. But I was a candidate for Tagrizo, which is a oral chemo pill, about $1,200 a day. So hopefully you have insurance. And they said, we're going to start you on this. You don't have to do regular chemo, IV type chemo. You don't have to, shave your head, anything like that. We're going to try it. We're going to see how you respond to it. Well, lucky for me, I took to it and I did really, really well with it. That lasted about 18 months. So I did really, really well for 18 months, almost to the point where I forgot that I had cancer. Everything felt pretty much back to normal. And the Tagrizo worked fantastic. Fast forward, I started feeling, I didn't know it at the time, but I ended up getting blood clots in my right leg. And so I went to ER. They told me to go to the ER because they're like, this could be bad. We don't know if it's being caused by the Tagrizo pill itself, or it's being caused by cancer, or it's just something else. And I went in and they did all the scans. They found a blood clot in my right leg. I couldn't even hardly straighten my leg out. I could I could barely straighten it halfway out for that matter. And they said, well, two things. We found the blood clot, should be treatable with blood thinners, and your cancer is back. And so at that point, 18 months in on the chemo pill, that was a pretty good run, but people have had far better runs. You hear about people being 6-7 year survivors on that Tagrizo pill. And I thought for sure that's where I would end up. And that was not the case. What they had found during that time was it had not only had it progressed, it started going to my stomach, it started showing up in the lung again. I forget, there were some other mets that they could detect in some other areas as well, but now it had mutated, and basically they had to start doing additional testing to find out, if the cancer had, it was just the same lung cancer, or I actually had something else, or what. So that was a fun week. It was actually the week after Christmas. Actually, excuse me, the week after New Year of 2022.
And what was the next step in the journey after that?
So here's what I would tell all of our listeners today is that get a tissue biopsy. We had done a blood biopsy or liquid biopsy just to detect if there were any new mutations or any, anything had happened in the cancer, and it showed nothing. Nothing had happened. When we finally got a good sample of the tissue biopsy, it had shown that I had 2 different mutations that actually made things a little bit worse in my situation, but it helps clarify what we were actually dealing with. And so the big one that they had found was, there's so many numbers and letters in these things, I get so confused sometimes, but it's TRIM24BRAF, which is a type of cancer it's a mutation in cancer that's actually very common in colon and rectal cancer, as well as melanoma. Very, very, very rare in lung cancer, to the point where we can find and have successfully found one other person on the whole World Wide Web that actually has what I have. So we actually found her and did a phone call with her, and basically kind of modeled my newest treatment regime after what she was doing, because there's no actual track record of how to treat this type of mutation in lung cancer. And so this was a pretty scary time. Like, oh boy, there's no known treatment paths on this. And we were able to track this gal down. Incidentally, she knew who I was because she has followed my blog before. And so she knew all about me already. And we did a call, wrote everything down that she had told us, and basically took everything to our oncologist. And he looked at it and said, yeah, let's give this a shot. So I'm on week 3 as of this recording of being on this new targeted chemo medication that hopefully is going to treat this new mutation that they discovered. So jury's still out. We're on week 3. It's still pretty early, but I think next week I go in and get the hood popped, and they're going to poke around and see what they can come up with.
At first I was thinking when you were explaining this story, at first I was thinking that perhaps your care team had somehow dropped the ball. But as I listened to more of what you're saying, it sounds like it's not like they dropped the ball so much. They're dealing with so much uncharted territory.
Probably a little from column A and a little from column B, if we're being honest. And how does one say elegantly, we do feel that they may have dropped the ball. So that was oncologist number 1. We've since moved to oncologist number 2. And he's the one that said, we're going to try, exactly what this other gal is doing, when team 1 didn't think it was going to be a good idea. So my mom always says, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So we'll leave it there. But I definitely feel that you're probably right. But you are right in the sense that it is a lot, and there's no question about whether this is uncharted waters, that it's a little bit of a, pin the tail on the donkey type thing. We're like, maybe we can give it a shot. So.
Now, I have to ask you something relating to lung cancer that is something that affects just about everybody who's been diagnosed. And that is this stigma that we hear about that that people who might be well-meaning, but to some degree they come from a place of ignorance when they suspect that once they hear you have lung cancer, that you must have had a tremendous history of a lot of cigarette smoking. Have you encountered that, and to what degree?
Yes, absolutely have. You're absolutely right. They're well-meaning. They're not saying, well, maybe you shouldn't have smoked. They ask, did you smoke? Well, being a product of the 70s, we all smoked in some capacity then. Any restaurant you went into, McDonald's for that matter, had ashtrays. But, historically speaking, I probably smoked 2 cigars in my life. And you can't be a distance runner and a kickboxer and burn heaters at night. It just doesn't work that way. So I appreciate where they're coming from, and I'm very quick to clear that up. That actually, as of I think it was the year 2019, that they said non-smokers have exceeded smokers in lung cancer diagnoses. So it's the tables have definitely turned quite a bit there.
Now, as you go forward, because you've led a very active lifestyle, I'm just wondering now, how active is it? If you could call pre-diagnosis 100%, these days, how close are you to 100%? And if there's anything that leaves you shy of 100%, what can you not do?
Well, right now on the new medication, again, 3 weeks into it, I can't do anything. So I just don't have the energy for it. We're trying to learn to manage these side effects of the new treatment plan, which it's a lot of it is more around food, nausea, that type of thing. So I don't really do anything right now. Despite owning a gym, I'm in there pretty much every day, but I just work the front desk. I do some marketing stuff, but I don't participate in coaching or any of the workouts or anything. The group there has been extremely supportive. We have a couple hundred members. They all know what's going on with me. I don't keep it a secret or anything. But I'm still okay to shout at them and push them a little harder. And at the same time, I'm sitting there. So maybe drinking a Gatorade. I don't know. But I'm hoping to, what does recovery look like to me? Trusting that this new treatment plan is going to keep me stable for a while. To me, it would just be getting back in there, training again. They're not going to let me compete in boxing or anything like that anymore. But just being able to train with the group would be an accomplishment to me. During the first 2 years of my diagnosis, I was still pretty active. I would say 90% of where I was before pre-diagnosis, and 10%, that gap in there was a lot of fatigue. My diet has been, restricted quite a bit, and just don't have the energy for it. But I would still say I was probably 90%, still, running and still training and everything else. But yeah, it's way down there now.
Are you optimistic you can get back to 100%?
Cautiously optimistic, yes. I'm also, I like to future cast. I like to think about what my life's going to look like in 3, 6, 12 months or whatever it is. At the same time, I'm also a realist, and I know that we've got we still have some climbing to do to get to that point, and I'm okay with that. I'm not giving up. There's no way. You hear about people that they just kind of think their life's over when they get diagnosed with something like this, and that's not the case. I mean, it doesn't have to be the case. Certainly you hear the stories on either side, but you look at books like Radical Remission or something like that, where people started making some major changes in their life post-diagnosis and got back to 110% or even better in some cases, and are very, very happy. They say that cancer actually saved their life. So I prefer to chart on that side a little bit, and I'd much rather be part of that success story than the people that find out they got diagnosed and just give up. That's not me.
Our guest is Dale Steno of Maple Grove, Minnesota, and we're talking about his survivorship with lung cancer and his continued battle with it. Now, we've talked about the support that you have provided those at your gym. I want to talk about some support that has been provided for you. In the Twin Cities region, there's a tremendous support group, the Breath of Hope Lung Foundation. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what it's done for you and what it can do for others.
Breath of Hope has been absolutely fantastic. Yeah, very popular in the Twin Cities community here. They run a lot of different charitable events and walks and runs and dinners, just a whole bunch of stuff that they do every year. I would say inside of 2 weeks after being diagnosed, they knew who I was, and the executive director there called me out of the blue. It was a bizarre thing. And she says, I know such and such at the hospital you were just at. I want to invite you to our community. We have all these resources. We have all this support. And so I jumped right in because I didn't know which way to turn. And I thought, this is going to be a good group. And it turns out they were fantastic. Incidentally, my newest oncologist that has started my latest treatment regime is actually part of the community as well. So that's how I actually knew him. And so he's very involved. He speaks at our conferences, that type of thing. So I was like, there's zero chance I'm going with anybody other than him. There's actually other doctors there as well, but he was the one that resonated with me the most. It's a great group. And quite honestly, every time we get a new, I don't know if you say member or whatever, but somebody new in the community, we tell them like, hey, glad you're here. Sorry you have to be here, however, but this is a good group of people. And I would say everybody finds that to be the same experience. So.
And the Breath of Hope offers a wealth of resources from its website. If you go to A Breath of Hope, that's one big long word, abreathofhope.org, that's where you'll find a lot of this stuff, just all sorts of information that can be of help. You don't have to be in the Twin Cities area to take advantage of it. All right, Dale, we're going to wrap up now, and we wrap up pretty much the same way. To some degree, you've already answered my question because you've talked about tissue biopsies, but just in a general sense. If you encountered somebody face to face, not on the web, but face to face, if you encountered somebody who had just been diagnosed with lung cancer, you might have a lot of things you'd want to share with them. But if there's one overarching point, one thing you want to make sure that you were able to drive home, what would that be?
Biggest thing, this is an easy one for me. You're right about the tissue biopsy. That would be one of them. The next would be self-advocacy. I think that with the World Wide Web and being able to do telehealth visits all across the world, you could visit doctors in Japan if you wanted, from the comfort of your own home. Get out there, do a lot of research. There's plenty of information online. And it used to be that, okay, you have cancer, we have to give you chemo, we're going to shave your head and just, the joke is that the chemo was a success, but the patient died. Those days are gone. You can find targeted treatments, but you do have to be your own spokesperson for it. Getting multiple opinions, that type of thing, and just knowing that your priority is getting better, and nobody can tell you or make you do anything. You're the boss of this journey. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. Dale, thanks very much for sharing your story. And it's a story that is yet to be written in its entirety. And we hope that the rest of the story goes just great. Dale, thanks very much for being with us on Cancer Interviews.
Hey, thanks for having me. Fantastic.
And we want to remind you, as we always do when we wrap up, that if you are on a cancer journey, you are not alone. There are people like Dale. There are organizations like the A Breath of Hope Lung Foundation, which can be of help and make a journey that is difficult, maybe less difficult, and maybe lead you to survivorship in its entirety. And again, the web address for A Breath of Hope is one big word, abreathofhope.org. So until next time, we'll see you on down the road.